this episode we're going to cover what happened in the Have Your Say section of the Cabinet meeting held on the 13th of March. The meeting actually turned out to be unexpectedly entertaining, in part because one of the councillors did possibly the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen a councillor do. So much so I had to clamp my hand across my mouth to stop myself laughing for quite some time. The other unexpected delight was the return of Gung-Ho Gordon. Yes, Mr. Vexatious himself. For those of you that are new to the channel, you need to watch the episode called Vexing CO2 and also Shameful and Unlawful. That covers what Gordon did at the full council. He basically informed the council how unlawful their collection of council tax is. As you can imagine, that did not go down well, and the deputy mayor shut the meeting down and tried to have him removed by the police.
Treason.
No. I'm sorry, I'm being advised that what you're saying is vexatious, and I'd like to ask you to leave the building, please.
History, is that your problem? It's in the history books.
Is that contribution was vexatious, scurrilous, improper, and objectionable.
Anyway, we didn't know he was coming, so it was quite delightful to see him again, although we were slightly concerned he'd end up shutting the meeting down when Karina had a very important speech to deliver.
Good evening. On the 13th of February, when challenged about fraudulent 5G applications, Council stated it was not the responsibility of Council officers to check the information provided by companies declaring to conform to ICNA guidelines. This assertion was incorrect. The Planning Inspectorate have confirmed in writing, and I quote, "We are aware of questions being asked about the use of fraudulent certificates in 5G mast cases. It is important to note, it is the responsibility of the relevant LPAs to ensure any certificates submitted as evidence as part of the application are valid. Why do councillors and council officers persist in making false claims? The days when the public might naively believe whatever the authorities say are over. With trust lost and councillors' obligations to act lawfully and transparently, evidence is required to support any claims. Many councils are being confronted with questions as to the safety and legality of mast installations. This council is in breach of the National Planning Policy Framework, section 121C, which states, applications for electronic communications development, including applications for prior approval under the General Permitted Development Order, should be supported by the necessary evidence to justify the proposed development. This should include, for a new mast or base station, evidence that the applicant has explored the possibility of erecting antennas on an existing building, mast or other structure, and a statement that self-certificates that, when operational, International Commission guidelines will be met. How is it possible for Council to fulfil its stated responsibility to ensure certificates are valid when the applicant does not exist? A brief search revealed at least 6 fraudulent applications passed. A thorough search is likely to reveal more. But let us not lose sight of the most important matter. It could be possible to dismiss 30 blind calves born in a field beside a newly installed 5G antenna as a trivial matter. But the public health concerns over 5G radiation harm is not. The Milgram experiment notwithstanding, I trust each councillor will conduct him or herself appropriately in matters relating to public health. It's been made apparent that few had researched or considered dissenting information or the lack of robust evidence before robotically supporting a climate emergency, an appalling dereliction of duty. Surely the sensible way forwards, respecting the precautionary principle and protecting yourselves against litigation, is to cease any further mast approvals until the matter has been properly explored. Please raise your hands, those who would welcome a brief exploration of these concerns. Thank you.
I'm just going to say this, 3 things. First of all, the way that this council works, we expect, is to act within the law and in accordance with the legislation, and I'm going to make that presumption until we know otherwise. So references to fraud, for example, are very significant and a serious matter, and would have to be demonstrable, and if so, they will be referred to the relevant authority.
The Planning Inspectorate has confirmed that.
We're not having a conversation here, respectfully. we'll not get through the evening. So the third thing I'm going to say is, given the complexity, I hear the words, I half understand them. Others, like Andrea, might understand them all. But this is not the time or place to give you a response in the comprehensive way that your suggestion, your allegation, your reading, should we say, of legislation requires. So we will come back to you in writing in full. Thank you.
So as you'll notice, not one of them raised their hands that they were remotely interested in looking into the health aspects of 5G. It would be nice if they acknowledged the concerns that many members of the public have over 5G and at least took some interest in it. As you can see, we have the evidence from the Planning Inspectorate. It is their responsibility. So really, they must show us material evidence that it's not their duty to check the planning applications. But if it's not their duty, who on earth is it? Next up was a gentleman who had a few questions for Councillor King on Community 360, which for those out of the area is a charity that's being investigated because the head person loaned herself £200,000 out of the charity. My guess is it's nobody's fault, everybody followed the law and it's all fine. But anyway, let's see what Councillor King has to say for himself after being put on the spot about his involvement in all of this because he was a trustee at the time. Awkward.
Sorry, Bevan? Come forward. Thank you.
We are all familiar with the old adage that charity begins at home, while in the case of Community 360, this seems to have been taken quite literally. As we are all aware, the leader of the council was a trustee at the charity during an important time when it seems there were some strange decisions taking place. The leader of the council has previously stated that he does not recall the loan agreement from the charity to the chief executive. I find this claim to be quite extraordinary. Is the leader implying to us that he was not prudent in his role as a trustee? According to the government's official website, there are 6 main duties for a trustee of a charity. Will the leader of the council now be fully transparent and provide us all with clarity on what he knew about the loan? Or would he rather admit to failing to live up to the 6 duties of a trustee to act responsibly, reasonably, and prudently? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I think, Bevan, this has been in the public domain, so I'm just going to restrict myself to a few points of, I hope, fact. So, yes, I was a trustee for a period. That's fact and out there. I have made plain that I share a responsibility with other trustees for decisions in that time. There were 3 issues raised in terms of concerns about this organisation. And I was able to respond to 2 because I could genuinely recall conversations of that time around those 2. I was not clear, and given the importance of it, did not want to comment upon the 3rd, which happens to be this loan. I have sought information from Community 360 to help me, but I've been unable to obtain that. That's their right not to share it after the event. It would have helped me be clearer about what I saw or did not see in this period in 21.
Next up was the leader of the Red Team, Councillor Julie Young. You'll notice it's taking her quite some time to get to the chair. That's because she took a little detour to come and have a chat with yours truly. Well, not really a chat as such. She just leaned towards me as she went past and said, "I don't want to be filmed." And then went and sat in a seat right opposite a camera where she was being filmed. Now, bearing in mind, I was sitting behind her, so at best the only thing I could film would have been the back of her head. Also bearing in mind, it's in their constitution that people can film discreetly. And I was just sitting there with my mobile phone, filming people that said things of interest. So it was a little presumptuous that I was going to film her in the first place. But anyway, I have no problem with not filming people at all. But it is nice if you have different camera views. It just makes things a bit more interesting in the video. So that's why I do it. I don't have some weird fetish about filming the back of people's heads. We don't care at Colchester Council Watch which team people are in. What we do require from councillors is the ability to think and see the consequences of one's actions, and also to make decisions that are meaningful. This was completely pointless. What on earth did she think she was going to achieve by telling the person behind her not to film and then going to sit in front of a camera that was streaming out to potentially thousands of people. She just made herself look utterly ridiculous. And it wasn't just us in the front row, I think, that was having to stifle our laughter, seeing her face fill the screen in front of us. And for local ward councillors, when they often only have a few hundred votes, every vote counts. So why on earth did she think it was a good idea to alienate somebody that reports on councils? And up until this moment, I didn't have a bad word to say about her. In fact, one of the episodes, the policy panel summary, it almost turned into a Julie Young fan club episode. I was a bit concerned about that because I didn't want people thinking we have favourites, because we don't. We report on when people do things well and when they don't. That's our criteria. We try not actually to focus on which team they are in, because we feel that it's the people that are important, not the politics. So, what was the thing that she was saying that she didn't want me to film? I can tell you're all just chomping at the bit to find out. To satisfy your curiosity, I will play you a small clip of what she said. But I am concerned she obviously didn't want to be seen in our videos, so it's a bit of a dilemma because I do want to honour her request. Perhaps AI can sort this out for us so that we can still play the clip without showing her. Hang on one moment, let me just press a few buttons. Right, that one. Right, okay, here we go.
Once again, scrutiny was here till 10 o'clock.
How's that? Oh, no, hang on. She's still quite recognisable with the voice, so just stand by it. Let me see if AI can fix that too. There we go.
It's a heavy burden for those members that sit on that committee 4 hours, and they've had a lot of meetings, and I think we need to look at that. Some of the members on that committee do professional jobs, some of which get up very early in the morning.
How's that? Better? The irony on top of the irony of requesting not to be filmed and then sitting in front of a camera is that had she said nothing at all, chances are high she wouldn't have been in this video at all. Anyway, there we go. Still, whatever camera shyness she was suffering from that evening, she certainly managed to get over it for the newspapers. So I will continue not to film her until she comes up to me and says, I do want to be filmed. Moving on, let's now bring in Gun-Ho Gordon to finish what he was trying to say at the full council before they shut the meeting down on him and muted his microphone.
I'd just like to finish off where I was on the conversation back in December. And I got to the point where I wanted to remind you about every 400 years, we have a revolution. That legislation for Magna Carta is still in full force and effect. So we go on from that to another bit of history with the French Revolution. France sustained the strongest growth after the revolution because a sector of the population wasn't bleeding the public dry, which brings us on to now finances on a more local level. The national government is insolvent. It is a crime for our 151 officer to do business with the national government. It is a crime to forward any funds to the national government in any way. You are on notice to that effect. One of the things that I think you guys are missing in the process of changes between national government and local government, you've missed some of the negotiations, some of the legislation creep that has changed things. I don't think you're seeing is the outcome of this legislation changes, and changes not just to that, but also to bankruptcy law. When the national government gave more autonomy to local government to spend money throughout the country, they've been doing that to the point where we have significant amount of bankruptcies. But when you connect that to the other legislation changes, and you see where those securities got cleared on the Euroclear, for example, and then up to a follow-up central clearing party, any one of those clearing parties that becomes insolvent, all those assets get forwarded to the protected class of bankers. They are not named. You're hard to find that protected class of bankers, but it is documented. So the law is not a level playing field. They've been running simulations for these clearing parties to become insolvent and how to deal with that. When those become insolvent, those securities that this council has will be handed to the protected class of bankers. And I don't know that you guys have seen that. You need to address these issues way in advance, because even in the case of criminal activity, that does not obviate the passing of those securities to that protected class. I just want to add, the bankers respect the wealthy class. I think most of you guys are fit into that category, and that is why they're saving you guys for dessert. Just to finish up, the ICNA, you have been put on notice that there is fraud. The burden now shifts to you with the planning decisions to investigate those things and to review previous applications where there has been fraud and deny and have those applications withdrawn.
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting presentation.
You guys need to investigate. This is serious stuff. It really is.
There is very little I can say in the time that's available. I will just say thank you for your view. We work within the law of the country.
So there we go. Right, I've got some potatoes that need planting on my allotment. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.